Welcome back to my studio, and this is Colleen with Designs of Value Art, so thank you for following me. And today we're going to continue with this beautiful orange Gladiola. Actually, this is the study of the petals for the Gladiola. I did put these two on YouTube, so look for those. That was my first two attempts. Two different petals. However, we're going to go ahead and do the exact same petals over here, and we're going to try a different type of painting to see if we like that better. Normally what I do is I flood the entire petal with water, and then you end up with something like this. This was my first attempt and I didn't care for it, but this was my second attempt on a different petal and I like this better. But now let's do a different one technique. And the first thing I'm going to do is try to remove some of the lines so they're not quite so dark here. There we go. Just have my handy dandy Faber-Castell dust-free eraser, and this does work really well to get some of those darker lines off of there. All right, so the technique we're going to use today is we're still going to use water. However, I'm not going to flood the entire thing with water. I am going to load it twice in the area that we're working on. And this is the petal that we are working on. So let's go ahead and we're going to do just the top, just this section, like a quarter of the petal at a time. And just thinking about what I want to do, I think we'll be okay. And I'll show you as we get into it the technique. So I'm using my water brush, my number 8 long round Princeton Velvet Touch. It's a nice brush. In a pinch, if I needed to paint with a brush, this would be my choice. Not necessarily this size. It's a fairly large size, but if I was doing a larger area. Now I'm just lifting up my board to make sure I have it covered. And I did not put a ton of water down. I would normally put more water down than this, and I'm just adding my second coat here. But I'm going to try a different technique. I don't want to have it quite so wet, but I do want it covered, and I don't have it covered completely here. So one more spot right up in here. There we go. Okay, I'm going to set my water brush aside because I do not want to use that by mistake. I'm going to go to my number 2 round. It's the Billy Showell. It has the long bristles as well, the nice point. I'm going to clean it just to make sure it's nice and clean. Got my baby cloth diaper on my lap so I can wipe off any excess paint that I do not want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in that yellow. I had a hard time getting it in on this side. I was unhappy with the way that turned out. And I'm just loading my brush, bringing it to a point. And it actually goes almost right down this entire area. Just like that. Just nice and soft. And it's further, I've actually gone further with that yellow than, and I'm going to just run, then I had water, so I'm just going to soften this edge. And then I'll soften the other edge as well. So I don't want it to be a real harsh line at this point. So I'm just turning my board to get it where I want it. We're just going to soften these edges. Now I like that. So far that's something I'm happy with. Of course, this is just the first layer. So now I do want to put a little bit of yellow, almost a darker yellow. I want to make sure you can see me. Just bring it down a little bit more so you can see me better. There we go. And now this is a darker yellow than the one that I just applied. And this is actually going to come down almost like that. We'll go right up to that spot. Now I do want this to come up a little bit further than it looks like on the photograph. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of where that bright highlight is going to go in. Now there's going to be some oranges that go on top of this, but some of these areas, but that's okay. Just clean my brush, wiped a lot of the moisture out, and I'm just going to pull that up a little bit and down a little bit, just to soften it away. All right, so now let's go into our mid-value and if you haven't watched the other video on this, please do, because it's going to give you all the colors that I used and all of that will be in there. And I'm just going to lay this in right where I think it needs to be. Pick up some more paint for the other side. And as you'll notice, I'm twisting my board so I can get the strokes to go the way that the petal is growing. That's real important because you want your petal to appear that it's growing, first of all, and if it's not, if you're doing it all straight up and down, you're not going to get the look you're looking for. Now there is some over here, it's a little darker, so that's what I wanted to do there. Now some of this does go right to the edge, and I'm going to go right to the edge just simply because we're going to come over with the darker value and add in some of the streaks. So now there is just a little bit of a separation in that petal right there. So I want to be sure and get that in there. Just paying a little bit more attention to detail with this technique than I think I was with the other. I'm going to reinforce that right there a little bit more. Okay. Want to make sure I've got that nice outside line. Running out of paint. There we go. Even though you don't really see the strokes at this stage, you still want to put your strokes in as the petal grows. In other words, follow the growth pattern of that petal as you put your strokes down. Even though you may not see them right now, but it's going to get you in the habit. And I'm going to take my, since I have eye issues, yeah, I missed the edge there. Okay, so I'm going to fill this in right to the edge because I didn't get right to the edge before. So we will now. In case you don't know, I've had 3 major operations on my eyes in the last year and a half. I'm fortunate to be able to see, actually, thanks to my fabulous doctor that I was very lucky to find. And in our society, with the way insurance and health is, you're lucky if you can find a doctor that's covered by your insurance that knows what they're doing. And I was. Okay, so I'm happy with that, but now we need some darker values in there. So I'm going to go to my dark value. I've got water all over my palette, which is good. I sprayed it before we started. That's what I wanted. Now, it's starting to dry over here, and that's good because I want this to stick a little bit better. So it's darker right down the edge of that highlight area for that bright white. And I'm going to get some darker value in here. And then there's quite a bit right in this area, so we'll just fill that in. And again, this is just our first layer, so we're not really going absolutely insane or crazy with these values yet. We will as we go on. And this is still moist enough that I am able to get some of these streaks in here a little bit better. All right. Now, I do have a clean brush. I do want to get this moist too because I did not. There we go. It's actually about the color it is. Yeah. Want to soften these edges just a little bit. Okay. I like that much better. And to me, it's starting to look more like the photograph, but you don't have to be a complete person that has to have absolutely everything just like the photograph, but it's a good reference and it does give us ideas on how we want to go with. Get some more dark in here in this area with our design. A little bit more dark in this area. To me, that looks much softer, much more realistic, which I'm very happy with that. Make that not quite so distinct with that separation there. Soften that in a little bit. Yeah, there is just a little bit more dark right in this area. And actually right down this edge. There we go. Yep, I like that a lot better than this one, for example. Now, with that yellow highlight in there, that is, to me, not standing out as much as I would like yet. So I'm going to just do straight lemon yellow and a little bit of water, not a lot. And I am going to go right down. Yeah, that makes it come out better. It's really not a color that we're using in any of the other yellow. So this should make this stand out quite a bit more, which is a good thing, because that's the way it does on the reference material. Okay, so now that that's needs to dry, let's go over to this area and we'll work on that. Get my handy dandy water brush ready here, and I'm staying away from anything else that we painted. Do not want to disturb that. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit further this time. Kind of breaking this up into sections. And I think it's just a little bit easier to control. Just lifting it up to make sure I've got it all completely covered with water. And again, I'm not using anywhere near the amount of water that I did on the other petal, because I think we're going to be able to control this just a little bit better, just like we did up here. I think we controlled that a little bit better. Now this section I'm going to go to a number 4. Put my water brush down, clean my number tool, and I'm going to pick up my number 4. These are Billy Showell brushes that I use. I'm wiping off the ferrule so I don't get any water drips. Okay, so now this area is strictly yellow. And I'm going to go to the mid-value yellow. On the photograph you can see it a little bit better, so I'll bring that in. So this area, and it's a little bit duller, so that tells me it's our mid-value rather than our highlight area. And I'm going to just leave that edge alone for right now. And we're going to go down. Now these petal forms go this direction. So in order for me to do it that way, I'm just going to move that. Right at the moment, it's just going to be a fill-in. All right, now what I'm going to show you on that outside edge, sorry for moving this around so much, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. Picking up just a little bit more paint, not a lot at all. So I've got quite a bit of paint here. This is right where I laid down my brush. I'm going to just pull that in. And what it's doing for us by doing it this way is it's keeping that almost a highlight that's on the edge of this part of the petal. This edge is very light, and that's what I think I've just accomplished. So I'm very happy with that. So far, it's working out well. And this is the way that you do different techniques to see for any particular project that you're working on, what's going to work the best. This one I didn't care for. This one was a little bit better. However, I think this one's going to be the better of them all so far. And this is just really good practice before you start the entire project. Now we want to get some more, a little bit more detail in there. So I'm going to my darker value yet. And I've loaded my brush right on this outside edge here. It's darker. So we're going to do that. See how it's still moist enough to have that blend in on its own, and then it's darker up here. And this one actually comes right down like this. It helps to separate the edge of that petal. All right. But then there are just a few little streaks in here, and I mean just a few, just like that. And see how it's still moist enough that it's softening those? I am going to actually bring that darker value down like this too, because it's still darker in there. So just constantly be checking your reference material. Where do I want this to be? Where do I want this value to go? Okay, we're going to let that one dry. Yep, that's dry. We're going to go to this area now. Then we're going to come back in and pick up that yellow that needs to go in there. But I want to make sure this whole area is nice and dry first. So we're going to start over here. My dust-free eraser had little crumblies, so I just wanted to get rid of that. We're not going to go right to the bottom or this outside edge. We're just going to do this detailed part because it needs it. But I am going to bring, of course, the water down a little bit further and up a little bit further so it'll blend in. See a spot that I missed right there. Okay. Now, just a little bit more water in there, not a ton. Start it out in the middle of the section that we're going to paint and just kind of swoop it around, making sure I'm just double checking to make sure I didn't go over, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to set that down. Now we're going to do the same thing on this section that we did on the other section, and I'm going to stay with my number 4, and we're going to put the yellow in first. And this is actually the mid-value yellow. It's not the lightest. Adding a little bit more water to my paint there. And this does come up a little bit. Comes right up to that edge. And there is, I'm just trying to see here, you've got, we're just going to go over the whole area here with this value. Just make life a little bit easier. And I'm doing it in the direction that the petal grows. I'm filling in the direction that the petal grows. At this point, we're not really doing streaks. Just gonna, let's see. Come down just a little bit more. And I'm going to go over this a little bit too. I like this value a little bit better. Making sure I got the color value that I want. And then we're going to go on to the oranges that go on here in this area. Okay, so I've got that the way I want it. Cleaning out my brush. And we're going to go to our mid-value orange first. Loading my brush, bringing it to a point. It's pretty heavy in here. And then we'll come back and do the separations with the darker value. This does come down like this, so we're going to put that in. Kind of tying everything together here, reinforcing those. Alright. And yeah, there's quite a bit in this area, so we want to make sure we get that curve in there. Okay, clean my brush, and we're going to go to our darker value. Now this is still moist, so I'm going to be able to allow this to dry all on its own, hopefully. And since this is the first layer, I'm going to just soften these in. All I did was clean my brush so I can soften those lines in. I don't want them real harsh at this point. I just want them suggested. Now, since that's still moist, bring in some of that color up here, as I don't want it to. Some of these lines do come down like this, so I'm going to put those in. Alright. Now I'm going to add some more water to the next section down, and while this is still wet, it will and should be able to blend together just like we want. We're going to end up doing this entire bottom section. Then we'll come up and do that streak in there. Okay. So a very light coat of water going right up over these surfaces that I'm going to blend into. My second coat. And it is completely covered. So I'm going to pick up my number 4 again. I'm going to go to my mid value, and on this edge these details up here continue down, so we're going to put that in first. This is my mid value orange. Now I'm going to clean that out, and let's go back to mid value yellow. That's more water. There we go. Always looking to make sure that when you're loading your brush, you can see got enough water on your brush. So we're going to outline that edge there. This just basically fills in just like this, but be sure and stroke it on the direction that it's growing. which is different from side to side. Petals grow differently from side to side. And this section comes down this way. I'm going to just turn this a little bit. Clean my brush. Just blend these two together. Add some more value down here. Add some more value down here. This area right in here is pretty dark. And then down here it gets to be lighter as it enters into where it connects with the other portions of the flower. So there. Now I did go over the edge here, so I'm just going to moisten that. I had a paper towel here. I wonder what I did with it. Probably dropped it. Grab a clean one. And I'm going to just pick that up. Push it in as you pick it up towards the petal. And then if you need to re-establish the line work on the petal, go for it. Alright, I'm going to use my eradicator because that's not working very well. But my eradicator will. Alright, so I got my eradicator moistened, wiped off any excess paint or water. Wipe your eradicator in between each time you lay it down so you're not laying the paint back down. There's a couple schools of thought on the eradicator and how to use it. Some people do exactly what I'm doing right here, and that's to lay the eradicator down, kind of like we do when we're softening the edge of a color. And then pick up the paint, wipe your brush. And then there's people that hold the bristles straight up and down, and they both work. I mean, you're probably destroying your eradicator by doing it straight up and down, but sometimes that's the only way to get it done. I don't remember what paper this is that I put down on here. It seems to be coming up pretty easily. I know for one thing it is 100% cotton because that's all I use. Even for practicing. Because you can't practice on one type of paper and expect it to be the same on 100% cotton if it's not practiced on 100% cotton. So we'll come back to that and work on that some more once it's completely dry. Okay, I am going to dry this and then we'll go in and do some more detail work. So I'll be right back with you. Just adding a little bit of water to this section because I want to get a darker value in there. It just kind of looks dirty to me right at the moment, so yeah, it's better. And I don't want that. I do want to bring this to the outside edge a little bit better and down a little bit further. There we go. All right, so I want to soften this inside edge. So this is what I mean by laying your brush down with moistness in it. And what this does is it gives water to this area without really disturbing the paint. And it allows the paint to dry into the new water a little bit better. What I really need to do is to get this darker right in here. There we go. That's better. Okay. So since this is starting to dry on a harsh line, I'm just going to go over it with my brush on its side like that. It's because I don't want a harsh line in here. We are going to do some more detail work, of course. And I'm just softening all of these lines a little bit. Another thing that you can try, and I think we'll try that now. I'm going to still want to get some yellow in here. Since this is just a study sheet, I'm just going to go over that like that. I like that better. Well, let's go ahead and do this section first, and then I'll show you what I mean by a new idea that I just have. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add just a touch of water here. This line has to stay because that's actually separating this portion of the petal from this side, which goes over the back. It's not like a highlight though, but it is the lighter value. So I loaded my brush, but I didn't bring it to a point. So I'm just going back to the palette at that point to bring it to a point. All I'm doing is stroking in some of this yellow. And this is the lightest value yellow. It's not just straight lemon yellow like I did on the streak, but it is the lighter value. And that's just what I'm laying down right now. We still have to put some more things on top of it. Okay. Add just a little bit more color on this edge. There we go, that's better. Clean my brush. And I'm going to go into the mid-value orange. And that streak comes right down here. So what I'm going to do is just extend this. And of course it's not going to be as dark as it would be mid-value because it's going on top of this yellow. So that's going to lighten it. But that's a good thing because that's going to blend it in a little bit better. And get some more value in there that needs it. Oh sure, I dropped my water brush, never fails. And I'm just going to blend that together all the way up. Okay. That's better too. Okay. Now we need to get some darker streaks in this area. We actually need to bring this down in this fashion. It just looks too solid to me. It needs to be streaky. And I know it's wet right now, so it's going to soften them in. That's a good thing. So let's talk about what I was thinking. I'm going to create the darkest red value or orange value, whatever you want to call it, again on my palette, but I'm going to use it with my mixing brush instead of my good brush there. And I'm just going to add in some more darker values. Which is the permanent alizarin crimson. Deep, actually. So now, because I want this to be partially dry on this new mixture that I'm making, and all I'm doing is adding in that permanent alizarin deep until I get the deepest value that I want here. Okay, let me clean this brush. And then the trick we're going to try, because it's going to make the paint adhere to the surface a little bit better, because we are going to moisten it. And what we're going to do is reinforce these streaks over here. So we're going to just put some water on there, just a water glaze. Straight water. You don't want it soaking wet, but you want some moisture in there. Since I do want to reinforce this area too, I'm just going to add some moisture there too. Okay, so now I'm going to take my hair dryer, put it on low, and I'm going to dry the edge of this new puddle of paint. Because when it's drier on your palette, it will adhere a little bit better to that moistness, but still be pliable enough that we can move it and soften it as we need. Now I'm just going to remove the moisture from my brush. Yeah, that edge is nice and dry, and that's what I wanted. Don't normally use dry paint like that, but we're going to try that because we want these colors to stay, but we want to be able to soften them as well, if need be. Yeah, this is working really nice. can go right back to the same dry area to reload your brush if need be. It does make you feel like you don't have enough paint on your brush, but it's doing what we need. It's almost like a dry brushing effect, but we're getting more paint on it. And it still is softening in. And we got one more big one right down there that we want to do. Just drying my brush out pretty well because I don't want to have a lot of moisture in it. We're going to deepen this one just a little bit more. Curve it a little bit better. There we go. Make this one more of a triangle. And again, I'm just referring back to my reference. And then these look really good up here. We're going to pretty much just reinforce them a little bit. Okay, I like that so much better. Now there is, I'm just going to make sure that this is moist. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use that dry area of paint, and I'm going to just deepen this area because it is deeper in the reference material. Nice way to control your paint. It's something we're going to have to do more and more of. I like that. It's all about controlling the water. There we go. I'm going to just, as long as I've got a nice value on there, reinforce this one more time. We'll probably have to do it again. And so used to cleaning my brush in between, and I really don't have to this way. Just bringing in some of these streaks over here that we lost. I don't have any moisture on that paper at all right there. So I'm just gonna get a little bit of moisture on there. I'm going to reinforce the bottom yellow section. It's because it kind of faded out there a little bit, and I don't like that. And then we'll go back in and reinforce our brightest section there. All right. Now I'm going to go back to the dry paint section and pick up some of that. I just want to reinforce this area in here. Blend it into the yellow. There we go. Soften this in. Do the same thing here. Just lightly going over the strokes with clear water just to soften them in. Okay. go right back to the dry area. I'm going to go over this one more time. Hopefully we can get it to stay. With this dry paint, it should stay better than what it was. All right, now we're going to reinforce that highlight, which is just straight lemon yellow. Need some water in here. Just want to reinforce that streak. There we go. One more thing I want to do here. Pick up the lightest value yellow. I just want to add some more in here. Just doesn't look right. It looks washed out. All right, I am much happier with that petal compared to this petal. I hope you can see the difference on camera. I know I can in person here.